24 hours. That is how long the sensei asked a group of his students to go without checking their phones. No calls, no messages, no scrolling, no notifications acknowledged. One full day disconnected from the device that controls more of their attention than they had ever honestly measured. Most of them thought it would be easy. None of them were prepared for what actually happened. The sensei has run this experiment for years, not as a test of discipline, but as a way to reveal something that stays completely invisible as long as the phone remains in hand. What he discovered, and what every student who completes the full 24 hours discovers, follows a remarkably consistent pattern. In the first hour, almost nothing happens that anyone would call dramatic. The phone is put away, the day continues. But the hand does not know the experiment has started. Again and again, the hand moves toward a pocket that is empty, toward a table where the phone used to sit. The reach happens before the mind catches up, a movement so automatic that most people do not even register they did it until their hand finds nothing there. The sensei calls this the phantom reach. It is the body acting on a habit so deeply wired that conscious decision is no longer required to trigger it. Students report reaching for a phone that is not there between 10 and 20 times in that first hour alone, each one a small, almost invisible confirmation of exactly how much of the day used to be governed by a device they never consciously chose to obey. The hour ends, the reaching slows, but something else begins. By the third hour, the phantom reach has mostly stopped. What replaces it is harder to ignore. A restlessness with no specific object, an itch beneath the skin that has nothing to scratch. The sensei students describe it the same way almost every time. Not boredom exactly, but a kind of static, a low hum of unease that seems to come from nowhere and points toward nothing in particular. This is the moment most people quit the experiment. The discomfort feels like evidence that something is wrong, that they need the phone to feel normal again. The sensei teaches that this is precisely the opposite of what it appears to be. The static is not a malfunction, it is withdrawal. The brain has been receiving small hits of novelty and stimulation dozens of times an hour for years, and 3 hours without that input feels, to a nervous system trained on constant input, like genuine deprivation. It is not dangerous, it is simply unfamiliar. And unfamiliar, to a mind that has forgotten what its own baseline feels like, registers as alarming even when nothing is actually wrong. Somewhere around the 6th hour, something shows up that most adults have not experienced in years. Genuine, unfilled boredom.
Not the boredom of waiting for something specific. The deeper, older kind. The boredom that exists when there is simply nothing scheduled to capture the attention and no device available to fill the gap automatically. The sensei's students consistently report the same reaction to this moment. Discomfort first, followed by something they did not expect. Ideas. Thoughts that had been circling beneath the surface for weeks, waiting for enough quiet to finally surface. Connections between problems that had seemed unrelated. The particular kind of thinking that requires unstructured time to occur, and that almost never occurs when every gap in the day is immediately filled. Boredom, the sensei teaches, is not empty. It only feels empty to a mind that has never given it room to become anything else. By this point, the day starts filling with something the phone had been quietly preventing for years. Halfway through the experiment, something shifts that almost every student describes using the same word: noticing. Without the phone available to absorb attention during every pause, attention has nowhere else to go except outward, toward the actual environment, the actual people, the actual texture of the day that had been running in the background, unattended for years. The quality of a conversation changes when there is no phone within reach to glance at during a silence. The walk to get food becomes genuinely observed. The weather, the architecture, the faces of strangers, instead of being background scenery to whatever was happening on a screen at the same time. The sensei calls this the return of the senses. Not because the senses ever left, because they had been competing for attention against a device that almost always won and had simply stopped bothering to compete. Most students report something unsettling at this point. They cannot remember the last time they noticed this much in a single day. By the evening of the experiment, something has changed in the quality of thought itself. The constant low-level anticipation, the background expectation that something might be waiting, something might need a response, something might have happened that requires attention, has faded almost completely. What remains in its place is a mind that is simply present with whatever it is doing, without the persistent split attention of half expecting an interruption. The sensei describes this as the difference between a mind that is always slightly braced and a mind that has finally been told it can stand down. Students at this point report sleeping better that night than they have in weeks, not because anything about their sleep environment changed, but because the mind that finally goes to bed has spent the entire evening in a state of genuine rest that it had not experienced in longer than most of them could remember. When the 24 hours end and the phone is finally picked back up, the sensei asks every student the same question before they unlock the screen. What do you actually need to check? Almost without exception, the honest answer is almost nothing. A handful of messages that could have waited the entire day without consequence. Notifications that produce no relief when finally seen, only the small disappointment of having anticipated something that turned out to be nothing. The experiment does not end with students abandoning their phones forever. It ends with something more useful. A clear, lived experience of exactly how much of their daily attention had been given away by default, not by choice, not by necessity, simply by habit so old it had never once been questioned. The sensei does not ask anyone to repeat this for 24 hours every week. He asks something smaller and more sustainable. Notice, just once, what the phantom reach feels like. Notice what real boredom actually contains when nothing is there to fill it. That noticing alone changes the relationship, even if the phone goes right back to where it always was. Because once you have felt what 24 hours of attention actually feels like in your own hands, you cannot fully unfeel it. And the next time you reach for the phone without thinking, some part of you will have already started to ask, why?